To get this center cap onto our rim, all we're going to do is do Shift D to duplicate this, right click to cancel, then we're going to press M to move it to a new layer, and we're going to move it to this layer because that's where our rim is. So we're just going to left click on this layer, and that's going to move the duplicate onto that layer. We're going to keep this here just in case we want to make changes to it later. We have our original right here unchanged for later. So now we're going to go to that layer where the rim is. So we now see the center cap here, and we can just press tab to go to edit mode, A to select everything, change this to median point. If you want to, you can turn off the subdivisions here. Just click on the eye to temporarily turn them off. S to scale this down. And we can see the orientation's incorrect. Like these pieces are supposed to be on the other side so they can clip in to this area somehow. So what we want to do is rotate it around the Z-axis. So we're going to do R, Z, and then 180 and press enter. And now it has the correct orientation. So now what we can do is just press 3 to go to side view to get a better look at this. Z for wireframe. Actually, I'm not going to use wireframe, so you can just scale it as necessary. If you want to get a better idea of the end result, just turn on subdivisions, and you can tab in and out of edit mode to get a better look at things and scale it while you're in edit mode, and then compare it again. Use S to scale in edit mode and compare it again. I think this is about where it's supposed to be. Something like that, it's probably fine. Then once you have the scale correct, you're just going to bring it back on the x-axis. In edit mode again, of course. Always want to do any changes in edit mode so that you don't mess up the object orientation or the object location, whatever you want to call it. So just adjust things until you're satisfied with how it looks. Maybe bring it back a little more. Another thing I wanted to do, at least on mine, is go to vertex select and select the center vertex. Since we have really simple geometry, it's really easy to adjust the curvature of the center area. So if you want less curvature, select this vertex and just adjust it back. For more curvature, you would bring it in the opposite direction and you would have more curvature, as you can see here. So adjust yours as necessary for more or less curvature. And since it's such an easy change, you can always change it later very easily, very quickly. I think this looks pretty good. It looks like it fits fairly nicely. So the next thing I wanted to do is add in this, there's a dip right here, or this sort of semicircular cut that goes from the front all the way to the back and eventually cuts out a shape like this in the rim just between these two parts of the spoke. Again, pictures in the description. It's the same back view picture we've looked at. It gives a pretty good look at how this is cut out from the back perspective. And there are also other pictures along with that other one in the link in the description, in one of the links in the description, which will give you a better look at this front part, which looks similar to this, where it has this little cut and there's only a small bit of distance here. So one thing I wanted to change, at least on my model, is that I actually have too much distance in this area. So we're just going to turn off subdivisions, or actually this is the wrong object. So I'm going to turn this on, select the rim, go down to the bottom, and I'm going to turn off subdivisions. So we can see we have pretty good, or pretty significant space here, but the real thing is much closer to this, where there's not a lot of space on the front area here between this curve and the end of the circular curve. So we want to reduce the space in this area. And we want to move these vertices as if they were just sliding along right here, so that this between here and here stays perfectly straight. That's the goal. We don't want any of these faces to be changing that the flat area here. We want to keep this nice and flat. And the easiest way to do that again is just to go to face select, select this face, and we're going to get the normal direction for this face because this face has the correct angle. So again, we're going to go down and make a new thing like we did with the special direction. We're going to do the same thing here. So go all the way to the bottom on this menu and then click we'll actually change this first to the normal. So now we get the normal direction. So we want this to be on normal first. And then click the plus button. And we'll just name this special 2 and press enter. And then change this to special 2. Now we want to go to vertex select and select these vertices here. So just select one, C for circle, select, get the rest. And now we can use the special 2 option to bring these down as if it was all just sliding across. So we're not messing up the angle on these faces, so it'll still look nice when the end. So maybe something closer to this is going to be fine because we're going to end up cutting out a shape. So we will end up with something closer to what we want with approximately this much spacing. The back is fine. We're going to end up cutting that out too. So we can change this back to global again. And to cut out this shape, we're going to use a circle. So we're going to press tab to go to object mode. We're going to go to create, choose circle, change the vertex count to 16 and press enter. Tab to edit mode, R, Y, then 90, press enter. S to scale it down. Bring it up into position. If you want to, press 3 to go to side view. It's probably better to do it this way. S to scale it down. Again, in the picture, you'll kind of notice that it's not using half of the circle. It uses probably this much of the circle. It's a fairly shallow cut into the piece, similar to how I have it in this model, where it's just a fairly shallow cut. And then it tapers off towards the end, just like this does. This tapers off towards the end. So in order to get that shallower cut, we're just going to use less of the circle. So we want to use maybe this much of the circle. So you want these outer parts, these. We can actually delete the rest of it so there's less confusion. So if we just start selecting this one, maybe hold control, select, hold control, right click to select, still holding control, right click to select, and then delete these. Just do delete vertices. So now we're not being confused. These are the ones that we wanted. But actually, in order to scale it properly, we'll just control Z that. So before you do that, you have to scale it properly. And the way to know if you scaled it properly is these outer vertices need to be in slightly in comparison to this outer edge. And I think mine is going to be okay. If not, I can just move them in slightly. And then you can delete these. So select these once you have it scaled. And to scale it, just select all of them with A twice or whatever. And just scale it. I'll scale mine in slightly just to make sure it's fine. But you want these to be just slightly inside this outer edge. That's the goal. And you also want them to be close to this, where this line would be. If you look at the model, the other model, the rim model, we have this line going across, and you want these to be close to that line, or at least fairly close. So maybe I'll bring it up a little bit, just slightly, like that is probably maybe a little bit more actually. That's going to be fine. So that's that. We're just going to delete these using Control to select them, or whatever selection method you want. Just select the ones we don't want, delete them, choose vertices to delete, and we're going to press A. We're going to do E to extrude, right click to cancel, bring these back, and then bring them up some on the Z-axis, maybe up a little bit more. And we can see now eventually it goes beyond the model, which is good because we're going to use Boolean. But you can see it's creating this little trough here, you know, as if it's like water washing up onto the shore. Like this would be the shore and this is kind of the water. But it's giving us this little effect, and it's going to make it look like this, where it eventually slowly comes to an end and just curves around like this nicely, just as you can see in the picture. So this, moving it up and down, will allow you to adjust the ending point. You can see it ends further out here. If you bring it up more, it's going to end closer. Bring it down more. Something like this is probably relatively close to the real thing. So the next step is going to be to just select these vertices and press F, and then select these vertices and press F, Alt right click on the top and press F, and then we can do E to extrude, right click to cancel, and bring this up. This is just to get rid of the fact that we have some pieces still sticking through. So if we bring this up some, that will give us a shape that's going to fully cut out the part from the rim. I'm also going to go to Tools and Object Mode and turn on Smooth Shading. I'm not sure if that affects it at all or not, but I used smooth shading the first time, or the other times that I did this. So I'm just going to use it just in case to make sure that things work out okay. And then at this point, I'm just going to go back to edit mode and select these points on this side. It looks like I need to adjust this down to better cut out that shape, because you can see it's not really cutting the shape. We need to bring it down to where it's going to cut into the shape. And again, you want this center line to be similar to where this center line is. So we want both of those lines to be relatively lined up. And we can adjust these positionings later as usual, so it's not extremely important. But it looks like I selected an extra vertex, so I'm going to do Control Z a few times to undo that, A to deselect, and I'm going to try this again. Make sure I have nothing else selected, and then just position this appropriately. So now we can use a Boolean operation. So just tab into object mode, make sure this piece is selected, it should be orange. Hold shift, select the rim. And now we're going to go to File and User Preferences. We're going to go to Add-ons, because we're going to use an add-on to do this. Left click on the search box, type in bool, and then left click again to put a check mark here and enable this. You can click on this triangle to look through some of the stuff. You can even look at the hotkeys if you're interested in the hotkeys. They're right there. This should have a check mark, so type in bool, put a check mark on this, then close this. Now when we go down to the bottom here in the Tools menu, we now have Bool Tools. This just quickly adds in Boolean modifiers and does other stuff. It makes using Booleans a bit easier. So we can do the auto Boolean, or we can do the brush Boolean. It's going to be the same result mostly. This is just a dynamic option. You can change your mesh around a lot better using this option. So I think we're going to do difference here. So you should have selected this piece, shift selected the rim, and then do difference. And now you can get a look at what it's going to look like when you're done. It's not going to look like the finished product because we still need to add in all the crease lines to give it this effect where it has the crease running down the side and like this. So it's not going to look like that yet, but it is going to look like that eventually. So now we can select this piece. This square is that cutter that we used. We're just going to press H to hide it. Select the rim. And actually what we want to do, because if we apply the Boolean modifier now, regardless of whether we apply it here or if we apply it over here, it's going to create a hole in our mesh. And that's a problem. So I'm going to do Control Z and undo it so we have it over here again. The way to fix that is to apply your mirror modifier first. So we can apply the mirror modifier. Make sure you're in object mode and then just apply the mirror modifier for this rim. And then we can actually bring the Boolean to the top. I'm not sure if it matters, but I did it this way the first time. So we're going to bring the Boolean to the top by clicking the arrow to bring it up to the top. So your Boolean modifier should now be at the top. And now we can click apply on this. And now you see it doesn't create that hole. So if we tab into edit mode, we now have our little mesh here. It still needs to be adjusted, but this is closer to what we want. But now we actually want the mirror modifier back because it's nicer to have. So we're going to do 3 for side view. Alt right click on the center line. Alt and Shift right click to get this. And finally, Alt and Shift right click to get this. So you should have all the center lines. Press H to hide. Select a vertex over here. Press L. If that doesn't work, do Control L. Then do delete. Choose vertices. Alt H to unhide. Add modifier. Choose mirror. It's going to add it to the bottom, so we're going to have to bring it to the top. So just move it up to the top. Turn clipping back on. Turn this option back on. Disable the x-axis. Enable the y-axis. And we're right back to where we were. The only difference is now we actually have that piece cut out from this area. So as usual with most Boolean operations, now we have to clean up the area that's around this. So what I'm going to do in this case, I'm going to merge these over here. So I'm going to select this one, Shift select this, Alt M at last. Do the same here, merge those over. There's some on this other side, so I'm going to select a vertex, period, to focus in. And I'm going to get rid of all these, so I'm going to select these two, and then this one last. Alt M at last, merge that over. I'm going to get rid of this n-gon by selecting this one, shift selecting this one, J to join. If we were to add in subdivisions here, this isn't really giving us the result that we want. To get a better looking result, we're going to have to add in a supporting edge. So we're just going to press K, left click here. You can left click here and then bring it over. And then finally we're going to join it here. So just left click there on that vertex and then press enter. It's going to give us a nice little supporting edge. If you want to select a vertex, G twice, to adjust the position of specific vertex to make sure you have even spacing or relatively even spacing all the way around. Now with subdivisions you get something more like this, which still isn't quite what I had in mind. I'll take a look at this one But I think that's really all that I did on this one, and it just doesn't look the same. But that's okay, it looks close enough, I suppose. Oh, I think one thing I did on this actually, if we turn this off for a second, is I took these outer ones, turned this back to special 2, and just brought them down a little more to reduce how far out it actually went, and that looks a little better, I would say. So that's really it for this part. We just gotta fix up this back part again. I'm gonna change this back to global, tab into edit mode. One thing we need is an edge loop running around like this, because that's how the shading goes in the picture. If we just do Control R, you see it's running in the wrong direction. So if we go to edge select this edge, go to the top or close to the top and do subdivide, it's going to create a vertex here. So now when we do Control R, it's going to stop that line right before the vertex. So we're going to left click, then do E, F if you need to get it on the right side. Bring it in fairly close, left click, so we have it like this. And then you can select this vertex, G twice, bring it in. Select these two, J to join. We can turn off subdivisions temporarily. I'm going to get rid of these n-gons here, so we're going to select these two, J to join. We're going to do Control R to left click, right click. It's going to add in another loop here. We don't really need most of these vertices, but it turns out better if we do it this way. So we're just going to select this one, shift select this one, J to join. Then we can select these two, J to join. And we can get rid of this edge, so go to edge select this edge, delete dissolve edges. Go to vertex select this vertex. And actually we just want to do K for the knife cut tool, left click here on that vertex, left click, and then left click and press enter. At this point you can select these three or select them individually and do G twice to adjust their spacing. And then once you have all that done, we have this nice edge loop running around the outside. You can check out what it looks like with subdivisions, so it's not too bad. But to add a little bit extra to it to make it look a little better, I added in an inside support edge loop that runs around like this, around the inside. So I'm going to turn this off real quick, and we're going to add in that inner loop. But you see, because we have a triangle, it's going to stop right here. So we're going to do Control R, and actually it also runs across like this, and we don't want that. So I'm going to Control Z that. And to prevent it from running across like that, we can do what we did earlier, just go to edge select this, subdivide. Now we can Control R, left click, E, F if you need to, bring this in. Left click to confirm. And then K for the knife cut tool, left click again, and then left click and press enter. Get rid of this vertex, so select it, shift select this one, Alt M at last. And we can even get rid of these vertices here, so we can select these two. Select this one first, shift select this one, Alt M at last. Do the same here. And that'll get rid of that. And now with subdivisions, we have a nice crease line going on here, similar to how the real thing looks. One thing we need to fix, you can see the shading over here, is this didn't actually continue all the way up. So what we need is for this to continue all the way up. So if we were to do Control R, it's going to continue on and not be the way that we want it. So we're going to do Control Z, go to Edge Select, select this edge, do Subdivide. Now do Control R, left click, drag this in. You can do E if you want, F to switch the thing over to the left side. Try to match it up to the other one. Then go to Vertex Select. I'm going to select this one that we don't need. Shift select this one, and then lastly Shift select this one, Alt M at last. So now this edge loop continues all the way up, and when we turn on subdivisions, we have that nice crease line going all the way through, all the way down. Everything's looking nice. So back in edit mode, we want to do something similar to the left side, because now the center is nice and creased and then this outside's not. So for consistency, we can do Control R, but again it's going to run all the way down. We don't want that. So I just right click to cancel that, and we're going to do the same thing. Switch to Edge Select, select this edge, do Subdivide. Now do Control R, left click, then E, then F if you need to. Bring it in roughly similar to the other one. Looks good to me. Go to Vertex Select, turn this off if you want. And we're going to get rid of this vertex, Shift select this one, Alt M at last. And then I'm going to select these two, J to join, and I'm going to quickly look at how I handled this the first time. So I ended up just making it all quads. And to do that, I select this one, Shift select this one, Alt M at last, G twice, and slide it over. And then we can take these top ones and merge them to the bottom. So select the top one, select the bottom one, Alt M at last, and then repeat that. Getting rid of those double vertices going across that we had gives us better shading in this area, because if we had what we had before, or something similar to what we had before, you end up with like this crease line going across the bottom that's really not supposed to be there. So we just want to merge these down so it's only one single line. And now you're less likely to get that creasing line, and it looks a lot more natural, and it's a lot closer to the actual car or the rim model. So this looks good. We have our outer crease, we've got our inner crease. Again, if you wanted to sharpen this, you could add another crease on the inside. I don't actually think I did that on this one, but that's an option. You would add in another crease if you want to sharpen this up. But I think this looks pretty good. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything like on this side. But I think we're pretty good as far as everything goes. The only other thing, I don't know if I did it on this particular one, but the only other thing I had considered trying to do is getting rid of these lines. First, I'm just going to save this. And I believe all I did was probably just merge some of these over. Taking some of these and just merging them over. And we'll see how that looks. So that looks fine. You get rid of those those lines in there. I just merged a few things over. I took the ones that were right here, merged them over, and then I took the one that was on this straight, in between the straight lines, it was right here, and I merged it to the left. So that's all that I did to get rid of that, and it gives us better shading in this area. You don't have those lines anymore. It's much nicer looking around the hole here, and now we have that nice cut in just like they have on the real thing. And we also have our center cap, so we can save it. Just go to File and Save.